Yesterday, the jury got to go on a field trip. Before I begin, excuse this and this, I'm on vacation. So from this point forward for the next week, the videos are going to be from random places with me appearing in various states of vacation mode. So bear with me. From what I understand, this was not on camera, so we were not allowed to see this, but they went, I believe, kind of did the loop. They went to the CVS, they went to the 3V restaurant, and then they went to the Clancy home. I am hit or miss on jury visits. If going to the scene of the crime helps them kind of visualize this. And in this case, the prosecution felt they needed to see the layout. Like, here's the backyard, here's the window, here's the door to the basement, here's the layout of the basement, here's where each of the children were found. That's fine. That's their prerogative. They can do that. I think the reason they did CVS, I've never known one to do these other sites like this. I think they did CVS and 3V because they were trying to show the jury this is exactly how long Patrick Clancy was gone. Like, this was the route he took, and this is how long he was gone away from home. I really do think, like, pulling up Google Maps on the computer in the courtroom would have served the same purpose, but that's just me. Once we got back to court, there were 4 prosecution witnesses. There were 2 that were police officers, and there were 2 that were doctors. The first officer was a Mark Anthony Maffio. He was at the hospital, and he was actually in Lindsay's room. While the prosecution could say, what did you see? What was the situation? Was she taken into custody at that time? The defense was able to say, here are all the images, and he does this really nice job. It's kind of old school, which at first I thought, what's he doing? But now I've started to like it. He puts up the big, huge, blown up photo poster board things, which absolutely make a statement, right? But he showed photos of Lindsay in the hospital, the state that she was in. He showed the cuts on her arms, the cuts on her neck. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to show them here because TikTok doesn't allow that type of content. If I can find a way to put them in here where they're put them in here where it's not so graphic, or I don't know, I'll try and find a way, but seeing them, I think, is very eye-opening. The prosecution has continued to kind of lead down the path that they thought that Lindsay's suicide attempt wasn't really a suicide attempt. But you can see the size of the knife she used, the multiple cuts on each wrist, like repeated, like cuts on each wrist, cuts under here. The blood, I mean, there was a lot of blood in that room. There was blood droplets everywhere. Just the photo of the knife shocked me. And then I think if you go backwards out of a second-story window head first, and then you fracture, I think it's a Jefferson fracture is what it's called, that's no joke. Like, that's a serious attempt. And from what I understand, she's been contemplating suicide every single day since then. She has to be under 24-hour monitoring because she'll do it again if given the chance. Because, repeat after me, she is a sick woman who needs help. Anyway, the next person up on the stand was a guy named Richard Lepard. What he testified was that he went to South Shore Hospital, which is where Lindsay was, and he was assigned to kind of basically guard her, right? Like, he was the one that had to stay with her. So even though she was unconscious, even though she was, it sounds like, I mean, she was essentially paralyzed. Can't remember if she was handcuffed to the bed or not, but she still required guards. And so he had to stay with her, he and another officer. And then at one point they realized that they couldn't take care of her at this hospital, so they airlifted her. We have it both ways. Her injuries are inconsequential, according to the prosecutor, but they're also so substantial that they had to have her airlifted by a medevac helicopter. So an urgent situation to take her to another hospital in Boston where she could get the proper care. He was on that helicopter with her and accompanied her and then guarded her. And he stayed there for like 15 or 16 hours to make sure that no one came in the room, that she didn't leave, that nothing happened in that time frame. And they said during that time that she essentially died. So she coded. There was a code blue. She essentially died, and they resuscitated her and brought her back. So anybody that thinks these were just superficial wounds and there was nothing, this was a put on. She's playing an act. She died right there in the hospital, and they resuscitated her. So not only did she kill her kids, which she knows she did. We all know she did. I've said it in every single video. We know she did. We don't need to prove that she did it. but the injuries that she did to herself afterwards were very substantial, and she continues to be a threat to herself every single day. Then they put up on the stand two emergency room doctors. Well, one's a former, but at the time they were both working in the emergency room at Beth Israel Hospital. And one of them treated Dawson, the other one treated Callan. The one treating Dawson said exactly what we'd kind of heard before, that he arrived, he had no pulse. The doctor was told he'd been strangled. There was no pulse, he was not breathing. They spent about 40 minutes. They tried everything they possibly could to revive Dawson before they realized that there was just no way he was ever going to breathe again, and they never ever were able to restart his heart. Callan came in the same situation, no heartbeat, no breathing, but they gave him epinephrine. They shot him with epinephrine, and that revived him. So within about 10 minutes after arrival, they were able to get a heartbeat going in Callan, but there was no way he could breathe on his own. They moved him to Boston Children's Hospital. They continued. He couldn't breathe on his own. And at one point they decided, basically because there was no breathing for so long, there was no brain function, that's the equivalent of being in a coma. And he never, ever recovered after that. And I'm sorry, I forgot about a fifth witness. Her name was Melissa Arcadapane. She works at Seltzer Hospital. She's the one that takes in the specimens, and she testified that she did get a sample of Lindsay Clancy's blood and urine, multiple vials, and then there was a preservation order. So she was ordered to maintain vials of it. So she did. So she maintained the specimen. She talked through all of like the chain of custody that happens and where you store them. And then she received a warrant from the Massachusetts State Police to hand them over. So she did. So what will happen next, I'm sure on Monday, is that we'll now start to hear some of the medical testimony, right? Because everybody has asked, like, what was in her system? Well, they have blood samples and they have urine samples. So we're going to find out, I'm sure, next week what Lindsay had in her system on January 24th of 2023.